the B Plus Wrestling Podcast.
The Moose.
You might not be an A, but you are a B plus.
Check it out!
All right, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends, welcome to the B Plus Podcast. Today is Friday. You know what that means. It's Aussie Grapps Day. It's our favourite day here at the B Plus Podcast, the day we sit down and take a look at everything happening in the world of Australian professional wrestling. We also like to sit down to speak to an Aussie grappler or grappler adjacent person. This week, I had a chance to sit down and speak to the voice of MCW, one Lord Andy Coyne. It's a great chat, and before we get to that, though, we do need to take a look at this week in Aussie Grapps news. And just straight off the bat, I'm just going to let you guys know, before we get into the news even, I'm going to let you guys know I've had a bit of a mental health day, couple of days. And so if this episode is not as thorough as usual, I do apologize. These things happen from time to time. I will get back on top of it. Thank you for those who have reached out to me and in the past when these things have happened. And, you know, I'll get on top of it, but just come the end of the episode when I tell you what's happening this weekend near you. It's going to be a bit of an abridged version, just because I haven't had the opportunity to really delve into everything that is going on this weekend. There's 10 shows coming up, and so I've just got like a light overview as opposed to giving you the rundown of the cards like I normally would. So I do apologize for that, and you know, next week hopefully we'll be back to normal. But for now, this week, Aussie Grapps news. Starting as we often do with our Aussies overseas, Robbie Eagles, top of the block again. Well, not top of the block anymore after tonight, but he is killing it overseas as a part of the Best of the Super Juniors tournament in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was on top of the block until tonight. You know, his loss to Bandito has left him down a little. Now his block will be decided between Taguchi and Will Ospreay, but he put in a fantastic showing, better than I think any of us really expected. He's been right at the top. He's got a really compelling story happening between himself, Will Ospreay, El Phantasmo. You know, it looks like there's an open invitation for Robbie to go join Chaos, but he went to New Japan through Bullet Club. But is he really fit for Bullet Club? You got El Phantasmo, ELP doing the, you know, mini Jay White stuff and really fitting in with Bullet Club, and Robbie sort of not being willing to quite do what it takes. Very interesting story that they're telling there with Robbie Eagles, El Phantasmo, Bullet Club, Chaos, Will Ospreay. Definitely worth tuning in for. It looks like it's going to be a long-term story that they're going to tell. So head over to NJPW World, support Robbie Eagles, support New Japan, because New Japan are supporting the Australian scene, it seems. You know, they're definitely interested. They're coming over here, they're signing our guys, and we want that to continue because we want our people to, you know, we have some of the best wrestlers in the world in this country, and we want them on the biggest stages possible. Robbie Eagles in Best of the Super Juniors is just one example of that. Over in Japan, staying there for a minute, Charli Evans, one of our own who is, you know, doing big things in the UK, she and Millie McKenzie became the Sendai Girls World Tag Team Champions this week as well. So very interesting there. I think this may be Charli Evans' first trip over with Sendai Girls. I'm not 100% sure on that, to be honest. I probably should have done the research. But Charli Evans, Millie McKenzie, who I'm going to call Millie McKenzie an honorary Australian. If she comes back for one more trip, I'm going to call her an honorary Australian because the matches she had in MCW and PWA were fantastic. I'm a big fan of Millie McKenzie. I like her working here, so I want her to come back and do more. But that does it for Aussies overseas for now. Let's take a look at what's happening a little bit closer to home this last weekend. A bunch of things happening this last weekend. We got the announcement that Felix Young is coming to Adelaide Championship Wrestling. So Felix Young, you know, from over in Perth, he's gracing us here in Adelaide once again with his presence for the next big show. Takes place on June 29. Show is called Redemption. That one's at the Estonian Hall. So every couple of months they do a big show at Estonian Hall. This is one of those shows. We've got Richie Taylor coming over, Sid Parker, Felix Young now as well as all of the ACW faithfuls. So definitely going to be a good one to get out to. We also saw some title changes this last weekend, as well as announcements. We saw some title changes. Riot City Wrestling here in Adelaide had three title changes. That's all their major titles changed hands over the weekend. The Pariah managed to topple the Armstrongs and walk out of HQ once again. Riot City Wrestling Tag Team Champions. Mickey Fortune came for the title. She never lost and dethroned Indy Hartwell in impressive fashion. becoming the RCW Women's Champion. Of course, a title that has been held by Demi Bennett, famously, now Rhea Ripley over in NXT UK. And as well, Zach Sabbath actually retained his title in his match against Kurt Barron, but Rocky Menero cashed in the key to the city, unlocked that key to the city, and he is now the Riot City Wrestling champion, taking advantage of Zach Sabbath after the match and walking out the champion. So very interesting. We also have a new Coastal champion over in EPW. Marcus Pitt became the new Coastal champion, and also over there in EPW, Mikey Nichols has challenged Julian Ward. Julian Ward, the newest member of the Untouchables, alongside Marcus Pitt and Damian Slater. Mikey Nichols, alongside Marcus Pitt and Damian Slater, the leader. We presume if TMDK has a leader, you got to think it's Mikey Nichols. He's the original. He challenged Julian Ward. Is this an initiation of sorts? Are they going to jump him into TMDK? Is it sort of, establishing a hierarchy between TMDK and the Untouchables? I'm very curious to see what happens here when Mikey Nichols takes on Julian Ward. If Julian Ward is TMDK bound, I think that's very interesting. TMDK bolstering the ranks. Definitely worth keeping an eye on. As well in announcements, I should have mentioned this before when I was talking about things that have been announced for upcoming, when I mentioned the ACW thing. Wrestling Go with some big announcements this week. TJ Perkins coming down to Australia on August the 2nd and 3rd that we know of so far. Wrestling Go will have TJ Perkins at their 3rd anniversary show, and Suplex Pro Wrestling will have TJ Perkins for their Chapter 12, The Cruiser Can't Wait. So their show's named after him. See, that's service. That's what you do. Suplex Pro Chapter 12, The Cruiser Can't Wait. That's on August 3rd. Wrestling Go 3rd anniversary. That's on August 2nd. TJ Perkins heading to Australia. You got to think he's going to find some dates in Melbourne, find some dates in Adelaide, hopefully. Look, TJ Perkins is, there's a lot of people who don't like him as a person. I haven't looked into a lot of the things, but I know that he's not necessarily a popular guy online. But I'm basing things off the ring work. I would be excited to see TJ Perkins work in the ring. So I have no idea what the guy's like as a person, but excited to see him wrestle. And that's all I can speak to, because like I said, I haven't looked into it, but I know there are people out there that aren't fans of TJ Perkins. But you should be a fan of Wrestling Go at the least, because Wrestling Go is fantastic. And just staying on Wrestling Go and how fantastic they are, they've announced today a Choose Your Own Adventure show, and the poster for the show looks like a classic Choose Your Own Adventure book. Oh man, hit me right in the childhood, that did. It's like the greatest thing I've seen today. It was kind of the thing that got me out of bed and being like, no, I really need to get up and record this Aussie Grapps episode and, do the research and figure out what I'm going to talk about, because, yeah, Choose Your Own Adventure, man. Holy crap. That's amazing. I love it. We're going to vote on what matches we want to see. We're going to vote on those on the old Facebook gimmick. So hopefully that we'll get to choose those matches. We'll get to watch the matches live via Kling or some other. So I'm super stoked on Wrestling Go at the moment. That makes me very happy. Also in announcements this week, Sub-Zero Pro. I think we touched on Sub-Zero Pro last week, formerly known as Iron Fist Pro. Yeah, we did. We definitely touched on it last week, because I remember saying that I thought it was weird that they rebranded. I'm not a fan of the rebranding. I think it was kind of a waste of time and money. But Sub-Zero Pro have announced their next show coming up here in Adelaide, taking place on the 19th of July. No venue announced yet, which, I mean, kind of a red flag given the past of the promotion. I know we're not supposed to know the promotion has a past because it's Sub-Zero Pro now when it was Iron Fist Pro before, but it does have a past. So the fact that there's no venue announced has me kind of, I'm a little curious here. But they have announced some talent sticking with the Iron Fist Sub-Zero Pro theme. Konosuke Takashita has been announced. He is the ace of DDT. Obscure choice. I think Hideki Suzuki was an obscure enough choice, but that was Jonah Rock's request. And as well, Hideki Suzuki has a decent amount of name value with catch fans. I'm a fan of catch wrestling, and so I'd heard of Hideki Suzuki and his work over there in Big Japan. Then the Rascals were announced for the second show, and that made sense. The Rascals sort of had to pull out for whatever reason, and they were replaced with Shun Skywalker, who never showed up with no explanation. Still, to this day, zero explanation from the company why Shun Skywalker didn't show up. But their Facebook post here for Konosuke Takashita says, visa, check, flights, check. If you have to do that for your announcements, there may be issues, but let's take it at face value and say the ace of DDT is coming to Australia. We'll have a fantastic match with whoever he's put in there with, because we have some fantastic talent. So whoever he gets put in there with, it's going to be an amazing match. It's definitely, provided this happens, it's definitely going to be worth checking out. And, I will be checking it out. So I'm looking forward to it. Something that's more likely to happen, though, the R&B show. Royce Chambers, he definitely impressed last time he was here with Iron Fist Pro, and he's coming back with his tag team partner, Jamie Baby, and the R&B show coming to Adelaide, which is something that Iron Fist did really, really well. It looks like continues to do really, really well, is highlight some of the best talent in Australia and bring some of the best talent in Australia to Adelaide, and a big focus on tag team wrestling. I know the promoter is a huge fan of tag team wrestling, he thinks that we have the best tag teams in the world. He thinks that our tag team division is one of the strongest in the world. And I know he wanted to make tag team titles the first titles he had. Before he had a singles title, he was advertising that he's going to have tag team titles. Don't advertise things until you have them, man. But, get those tag team titles on one of these up-and-coming teams. It's amazing. It's really good to see tag team wrestling being the focus of a promotion, because a lot of people won't, the famous Vince McMahon mentality of, why pay two people to do the job of one? You go out there and get over. Who needs two people? You can just send one guy out there and you save yourself some money. And that's a bullshit attitude. Tag team wrestling is a different art form, and I would love to see a pure tag team wrestling promotion. I say I would love to see it. I should just do it, right? That's what you do when you say, like, I would love to see a wrestling podcast based around Australian wrestling. So what I did, I went out and I did it. So if I want to see a tag team promotion, I'll do it. One day. It's on the cards. There we go. Putting it out there. A tag team wrestling promotion. That's a thing, right? That could be a thing. I think it could be a thing. Anyway, at this point, I'm rambling. So let's get away from me. This is what happens when I don't do the work and I don't have anything except for very few dot points on a page. Getting away from me, let's go and have a listen to someone else who can, not ramble, but talk with a point and actually sell things and does a great job of it. The voice of Melbourne City Wrestling, as I would put it, the voice of Melbourne Wrestling, because he's working with a lot of places down there in Melbourne. Lord Andy Coyne. I sat down and spoke to him earlier this week. Let's have a listen to that, and then afterwards I will hit you with an abridged version of what's happening this weekend near you.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey everyone, just want to take a second to tell you about one of our new sponsors, Outbreak Nutrition. Outbreak Nutrition are creating supplements for survival, sharper minds, quicker reflexes, all the energy you need to take your performance to the next level, whether that be on the field, in the gym, on the gaming field. That's right, they have specifically designed gaming supplements as well to help you focus on those late night sessions. They even sell coffee, you guys, at Outbreak Nutrition. You can get coffee pods, you can get coffee beans, you can get supplements for the bedroom as well if you want to enhance your performance there. These are performance enhancing supplements for every aspect of your life, specifically designed by gamers, for gamers, to stay fit and healthy in the gym, to stay sharp and focused on the game, and to dominate in all areas of life. So check out outbreaknutrition.com, and for being a listener of our podcast, they will give you 10% off your order when you enter the code B+. That is BPLUS at checkout. So make sure, if you want to stay on top of your game, if you want to take your performance to the next level, outbreaknutrition.com, enter the code B+ at checkout. Hey guys, just a reminder, if you want to hear all of these wonderful B+ podcast episodes completely ad-free, make sure you head over to Patreon or Podbean, where we are the featured podcast this week. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month up to $10 a month, where anything you want to help us with, it really helps out. It's going to help us grow the site. It's going to help us redesign some things, and everything that we get through this and through the advertising as well is all going straight back into the podcast so that we can get Aussie Grapps out there for the rest of the world to hear about, for the rest of the world to see, so we can grow this mission of watch global, support local, and build indie wrestling. So if you want to be a part of that and get some really cool rewards like call-in shows, bonus episodes, ad-free like I mentioned, then head over to patreon.com/theb+ and subscribe today. Joining me at this time, all the way from, I was going to say sunny. It's not sunny in Melbourne. It's dreary in Melbourne.
It's not sunny at all, Greg. It's miserable and cold right now.
Miserable. Lord Andy Coyne, how are you, my man?
Greg, I'm very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. It's always nice to talk about the old wrestling. So yeah, great to be here. Thank you in sunny Melbourne. And you can't obviously see it because I'm flexing my fingers on both hands. It's pretty miserable and cold. I am wearing my thickest, fluffiest jacket, even when sitting indoors at the moment.
Yeah, it's very cold here as well. Like, it's not even sunny in Melbourne in summer, so I don't know why that started to go through my head. And I'm just like, I've started to say it now. I have to address it. But anyway.
It's sunny. It's sunny for an English standard, if you know what I mean. So that's how for me, it's nice. So, yeah.
Yeah. This is good weather for Lord Andy Coyne.
Oh, marvellous.
Yeah, and so I want to just confirm this is Lord Andy Coyne I'm speaking, because there's many faces of Andy Coyne these days. We've got Party Shirt Andy, we've got Evil Andy. I'm a little concerned.
Brother Rudy, he's hanging around somewhere as well. So yeah, it's actually. Obviously, we joke about it, but 2018 was a really fun year for me. I just got to do a little bit of sort of experimenting and try out a few little things. And Evil Andy was one of those things, and obviously Rudy, my twin brother, who we never finally got to see on Underworld Wrestling, unfortunately. But 2018 was great for that. And I think it's nice I think wrestling is very important when it comes to everyone needing a creative outlet. I suppose even outside of wrestling, people need that. And obviously, I enjoy my ring announcing, I enjoy my commentating, but just the fact that I'm able just to do a few of the different things, especially with like Showdown being a heel manager, for example, it actually does really help reinvigorate you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking because as well, Party Shirt Andy came out at Wrestle Rock, which Dan does famously told us the Party Shirt Andy story.
Okay.
I was thinking you could do the three faces of Andy Coyne and commentate a ballroom brawl, right?
Oh God, no! I don't think I'd want to commentate as Party Shirt Andy because there's a lot of competition when it comes to that gimmick at the moment. I know that my co-commentator Lindsay Howarth has drunk Uncle Bede and he does it very well. And I think if Party Shirt Andy was ever to truly emerge as a character, that would be an inevitable conflict that would have to happen one day.
Yeah, amazing. We'll rewind. We'll get to all the things that, like you said, 2018 was a huge year. 2019 is already kicking off in massive ways the first part of the year. So, but before we get to all that, I want people to hear the Andy Coyne story.
The Andy Coyne story.
So you've been doing the wrestling thing for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people aren't really aware because there's no evidence of it. Because when I started, social media, YouTube, many of these things were in their infancy. And in fact, I think the last few years, I've been trying to get a lot of my old British wrestling. I've been trying to collate it somehow. And I started and I was having troubles with that. But then recently, a couple of months ago, there was somebody who was a fan of a British promotion I was heavily involved with who literally uploaded everything. And it's now all online, which is fantastic. So at some point, I need to go through. But yeah, I've been in the business for, it's 19 and a bit years. So I'm just a hair under 20 years now. And so I first entered a training school back in 1999. And frick, it's making me feel old just thinking about it. And I remember it was a London training school. And I remember going there and God, I remember the day so fondly because it was done in the Sobel Centre, I think it was in London. And there was no ring. It was just judo mats. And
nice.
But obviously British wrestling, particularly back then, was still very tightly clutched to its sort of mat wrestling and sort of like technical wrestling bases. So I think it actually worked. I mean, a lot of our drills and a lot of the training we did didn't really require the need for a ring. And I think the idea is when you got to a certain point, you'd go down to a sister school that was based down in Portsmouth and you'd sort of get experience of the ring down there. But yeah, I've been training since 1999 and What happened is that I got involved in wrestling just before I went to university. So this was my year out. And my parents didn't know this at the time. Actually, I've been in the wrestling closet, so to speak, from a large proportion of my friends and family for a very long time. And but the problem is now that I have a Lord Andy Coyne Facebook page, it's kind of getting harder to hide these things. And so my parents and my family actually finally found out I was involved in wrestling about 2 years ago. So that was a bit of an interesting one. But one thing that was wonderful is when my parents last came from the United Kingdom to come visit myself and my wife here in Melbourne, they actually got to come down for a MCW show at the Thornbury Theatre. And they had a blast. And I think they could see why I was so passionate and why I enjoyed it so much. But I was going to
how do you do that? How do you keep that sort of like staying in the clothes? Because I feel like once you get involved in wrestling, it has a tendency, from everyone I've talked to and even from myself, it has a tendency to take over your life.
Yes, it can. And I think when I was in my year out before university and I was going training every week and, I took more of an interest in my fitness, you just come up with reasons. And I suppose I think, I got to be honest, I presume my dad secretly knew, but wasn't going to say anything. I'm convinced he intercepted a videotape that came in the mail. Because obviously, again, back in VHS days, and I did a training session, and my training partner was a young Paul Burchell who was starting his training sessions, and it was filmed. And I said, "Oh, that was really interesting. Can I get a copy of that?" Now, back then, you don't film something on a phone and then send it over a text message. No, it's filmed. It's transferred to a tape. It's then transferred to another VHS tape, and then it's sent in the post. So this finally came. It was part of I was trying to collect some footage, and I think my dad intercepted it because the envelope didn't have the address, but not the name of who it was intended for. So I think he kept quiet about it.
Right. I have to say, just on a personal note, it's amazing talking to you because you make me feel young. I talk to a lot of these wrestlers and a lot of wrestlers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got into wrestling in 2006," and I'm like, "Oh man." And so like as a fan, like they started watching around then, and then I'm like, "Oh, I feel old." But talking to you, you're making me feel young again because I barely remember the VHS days.
I remember the first time I met Avery. And at the time, I was obviously just talking to her, asking her about, how did you get involved, And then I ascertained that when I first saw her helping out at an MCW show, she was 17 years old, and I quickly did the maths, and I realized she was literally half my age, and that just came crashing down on me, this sort of age gap. But the thing that makes me really feel really, really old is the fact that Mike Burr is younger than me. Now, that's scary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mike Burr is sort of, I mean, he's probably one of the oldest guys in the locker room, generally speaking.
And I'm even older than that, unfortunately. So, it's interesting.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, look, I have to do some digging because I'm fairly sure in a storage shed somewhere, in the bottom of a crate in a storage shed, I have some old WOW and POW magazines.
Yes.
That have some FWA stuff, because that's where I heard about like Jody Fleisch and Doug Williams and all these guys whose matches you would have been calling.
Well, indeed, I mean, FWA has a very special place in my heart. I think, in fact, when I came to Melbourne and I wanted to get back involved in wrestling, I met up with the MCW owner, Mikey J, and he also had a collection of FWA tapes. So actually, he knew exactly who I was, which I thought was flattering. And yeah, I mean, I remember, but if anyone goes to look at any old FWA footage, I was the heel color commentator. I hated it, but I was like the more charismatic of the two commentators. So I just kind of ended up in that role as a sort of a matter of elimination, I suppose. I much prefer the play-by-play role. It's much more comfortable. It's much more in my wheelhouse. But yeah, FWA was a very magic time for me. And obviously through that, I was commentating over the likes of Doug Williams, as you said, Jody Fleisch, Johnny Storm. These were big names. Robbie Brookside, who's obviously now an NXT trainer. And it's amazing to look back on the FWA and sort of see how much the British wrestling scene has changed. and also to see the people who were successful in the FWA, how some of them went on to WWE or make it as a bigger name in the United States. And I think at the time it felt like a real golden era for me, so to speak. And the one thing that's been really awesome about MCW is that I feel lucky that I feel like I've caught lightning in a bottle twice type thing. I see history repeat itself between the FWA and the MCW. The way they grow has been very similar. And obviously the mistake I made with the British wrestling with FWA is I eventually left, and I'm hoping with MCW I can obviously stay around and contribute to it in a major way as it continues to grow and hopefully become something very major in the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are the voice of MCW, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm hanging on tight to that. I've got Cracker Jacks clicking at my heels at the moment, but yeah, I'm hanging on to that.
Yeah, but I mean, despite being the voice of MCW, you are working everywhere. I mean, you touched on it before, Showdown, of course,
Yep.
Underworld. You do some interviews and things with Warzone as well. So you could even say you're kind of the voice of Melbourne wrestling almost.
Ooh, I was going to say it was interesting because I think I know we touched on this briefly actually before the interview started, but 2018 for me was a really cool year. I mean, I kicked off 2018 doing the ring announcing for New Japan, which awesome. Bucket list, ticked great. But 2018 was also an opportunity for me to try out a few of the different little side projects away from MCW. So obviously through Showdown, I've started becoming a villainous manager. My twin brother, who's not here, became a villainous manager, I should say. And then obviously for Warzone, did a little bit of backstage interview, and obviously Underworld Wrestling was a pretty big task, launching a Kickstarter, sort of getting that up and running as well with a few other people. And yeah, 2018 was fantastic. And I think as I move into 2019, things in my personal life are also starting to change a little bit. And so I need to sort of reevaluate where I want to take the second half of 2019. And as things are getting busier and over in MCW, you might start to see me gravitate a little more that way, but hopefully I won't be dropping any of the other projects. I certainly won't be starting too many new projects. He said he's trying to launch Snapmares, but
Yes, which we'll talk about Snapmares soon. But you kind of talked about the sort of the art of commentating. So, I mean, obviously doing the commentary for Underworld, doing the commentary for MCW, kind of different vibes. I mean, you're under duress there at Underworld, but aside from that,
I think, obviously the two products are very, very different. Underworld Wrestling, as you say, it's almost like, so it meant like I am the play-by-play for MCW and for Underworld Wrestling. But at the end of the day, there are slight character differences in many ways. As you say, in Underworld, Lord Andy Coyne, he's there under duress. At MCW, I'm sort of the proud professional trying to put forward the best face for the company. And I think in many ways, look, at the end of the day, commentating is all part of the art of wrestling. I mean, every time wrestlers go into a match, they're trying to tell a story. And the promotion is trying to tell a story. And you are the narrator for these stories. And that's something you got to take into account. I listen to commentaries from sort of other promotions and other feds. And, obviously, because I've obviously been doing it for so long, I sometimes listen to it. And I'll be honest, I can be critical sometimes. I'm sure people can be critical of me. But I sometimes wonder, are they just talking through the match, or are they really helping to put over the storyline? And with Underworld, for example, that has a massive storyline about what this promotion is and the dark secrets behind it. And with MCW, we're trying to present these talents as the best in the world, as well as the individual stories of each individual match. So, and I think that's something that you need to prepare for before you go into any commentary. I know a lot of people can go into commentary cold, but I actually spend, a night, 2 nights preparing notes for every MCW show because I know how incredibly important it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like if I was going to try to commentate, I'd be the annoying guy who's like messaging everyone, being like, so what's or going around before the show, I guess, while they're trying to put their match together and being like, hey, so what exactly do we want to tell people? Like, what exactly do you want me to let people know?
Well, the thing is, though, that's not annoying. That's actually really crucial. And some wrestlers, you should go up to every wrestler and go, hey, what do you want me to get over in your match? What is it that you're trying to communicate? Is there anything I should be aware of? Some wrestlers will go, I don't know, or I don't have anything to tell you. And then other wrestlers will say, yes, come here. And they will lay everything out, and they tell you what to say at certain times or what they want you to be aware of so that you can help them with the story. I mean, I think 3 guys off the top of my head that are really good at that. There's Gino Gambino, there's JXT, and also Preston is surprisingly one of those guys who he's fought this whole narrative of his match, and he sort of pulls you to a side and go, okay, this is what is happening, and this is what I want you two to say as well. And it also helps that on commentary I've got Lindsay Howarth and I've also got Crackerjack, 2 very smart guys as well who are also very aware of that. So that goes a long way with quality commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. And so knowing what to put over, knowing when to lay out, who are your major influences and who has been like the biggest help in sort of learning the craft of commentating, would you say?
Do you know what? I think I'm going to give you the answer that probably every bugger will ever give you with that question. And obviously, Jim Ross is generally considered one of the greatest commentators. I mean, I started watching WWE mid-90s, so obviously that's when JR was really at his peak with the WWE. And there was just something about him that he had that passion, he had that drive, he was trying to get over key storyline points, he wasn't getting too distracted with filler, he was always on the action. And I think, obviously, you just sort of subliminally learn from that and from other commentators. But I think JR's only the real one that really comes to mind. Have to admit, modern WWE, Corey Graves is very impressive, I have to admit. But I can't really think of many more names out of that. I think, really, though, a lot of my learning came from when I was involved in the FWA and sort of like I'd commentate on matches. And back then, you do the commentary sort of after the match, after the show, I should say. It wasn't live commentary. Yeah. It'd be recorded in post. So the advantage of that is you'll be sitting there recording it and you'll have the editor and the owner of the FWA sitting there. And obviously you're with your co-commentator as well. And you'll co-commentate a match. And then afterwards, all 4 of you will pick it apart and go, should we have done this? Should we have said that? Did we miss something? So I think a lot of it was trial and error and just picking up those sort of things. And often wrestlers will come over to me and sort of give me their opinion and their advice as well. And, when I first started, all of that is just absolutely vital stuff to sort of suck up. I know that, generally they say that the worst thing a wrestler can do is just listen to opinions and sort of like just ignore them. Obviously, for a commentator, it's true that if somebody gives you opinion, there's a reason why you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen more than you speak sometimes. And even if it's criticism, even if you think it's harsh, you've got to listen to it and you've got to then digest it. And I think a lot of it is a sort of a subconscious building of your skills as a commentator.
Yeah. With recording commentary in post compared to recording live commentary, how's the difference there? Like, I imagine recording live would be both more difficult, but also far more enjoyable.
Do you know, I think it depends on the person. I think for me, where I am in my career right now, I prefer live. There's obviously benefits. Is that you're sort of like, you got the adrenaline kicking in, you react more naturally to the crowd and to what's happening in the ring. It's also much more fun because obviously you go there, you see your friends, you commentate on a show, and afterwards you have a beer with your mates and then you go home. And that social aspect's very important for me. It's one of the other reasons why I got back involved in wrestling. When you do it in post, it's hard because when I started with FWA, I was a referee as well. So I went there, I'd see everyone, I'd ref, I'd then see everyone, and I'd go home. Great time. But when the decision was made that I'm just going to be a commentator now and I'm not going to be a ref anymore, I then stopped going to as many shows. And the problem is, therefore, is you sort of go to do commentary in post and you don't see everyone and you're outside of the atmosphere. And that's no fun. And I think with wrestling, whether you're a competitor or you're a commentator, you can see the people who are having fun. And there's no joy in watching a wrestler or listening to a commentator who's just not enjoying themselves. And I think that's the advantage of live over anything else. But then again, there are going to be some people who prefer doing it in post, particularly if you're slightly inexperienced and you're there with people who obviously can listen to your work and give you critical feedback there and then. I think that's really beneficial for people who are still new at it.
Yeah, I feel like doing it live, like it translates more for the people looking at home. Because like you said, you're there to tell the stories, but obviously as well, for the people looking at home, it getting that excitement over makes me want to go watch a show, right? Like when I watch Impact, when they did it live versus when they've had in the can commentary, it's like, it's night and day difference.
It really is.
So
Especially when, look, at the end, I work in wrestling, but also deep down, I'm a fan as well. I think anyone who's involved in the business are the biggest marks of all, to be perfectly honest with you. And so I love it when I go to a show to commentate, for me, it's business as usual 90% of the time. But it's really awesome when you actually get lost in the moment. And for that moment, like, the commentary just goes up a level. Like, if you talk about the match with Robbie Eagles taking on Gino Gambino, for example, that moment where everyone thought that Robbie was going to win the title. And look, I knew what the result was ahead of it, but there's that moment where you almost believe. And then, of course, Gino Gambino versus Slex, when Slex finally won the championship. That was a pretty cool moment. Like I say, that moment where you cross that line into becoming a fan again is just absolutely magical. And again, it all goes down to enjoying yourself, and that's what makes it so authentic.
Yeah, that moment with Robbie, that was probably the loudest live crowd reaction I've ever heard or been a part of. It was insane.
Oh, it was. No, it absolutely was. And obviously, if anyone hasn't seen that match, do go on to MCW Encore and check it out. And that's my cheap plug there, very quickly for MCW.
Get it in. Get it in.
Squeeze it in.
I'm going to get
more to squeeze in as well. So
it's good. Get the pop, because I'm about to get you some heat. I've told you beforehand. I'm going to ask you some questions. Yes. I'm going to try to get you some heat in the locker rooms.
Oh, God.
You touched on your commentary partners before, Lindsay Howe, Crackerjack at the moment, but you've had a few commentary partners over the time. Who's the best? Who's your favorite to sit next to in the booth?
I'm glad you said favorite, not best, because those can be two very different things. And And I know what he's going to do. He's going to listen back to this and he's going to send me a soppy message afterwards. But I've always got a soft spot in my heart for Travis Houston, who I started MCW with. And the reason I'm obviously a big fan of Travis's work and with working with him, I think, let me just take a step back. The thing with commentary, sometimes you can put two of the greatest commentators together and it's awful. It's all about that chemistry. And the great thing with Travis is that I was able to come back to wrestling and sort of be that play-by-play analytical guy. And next to me, I've got this overly excitable Australian dude who's just shouting to the heavens about, oh, what a fiend, what a villain this guy is. I can't believe he just did that, Andy. And for me, it was just a fantastic sort of duo, me and Travis. And I really miss him on commentary. But as you say, so that's my official answer. But obviously, I've got Lindsay and Crackers now, and I think as a three-man booth, we're pretty damn good. It started off just us trying to find our feet, but now the advantage that we three have is we're actually three rather considerate individuals. So we're always looking for opportunities to pass the baton on to one another. And I'm so glad for that, because in wrestling, you can always have people who are trying to, overtake things. But thankfully, at the commentary booth, that is not happening. So that's a relief.
Yeah, especially in three-man booths. Like, I feel like on WWE, especially the two that come to mind are JBL and Booker T.
Ugh.
They just put themselves over all the time.
I really... this is one of those comments that may one day cost me an opportunity. I don't know. But I'm really not a fan of JBL. Again, the main reason being is he was a villainous commentator, but he had to win every argument. He had to win every point. And in many ways, the whole point of wrestling is that the villain gets ahead and then the hero, rescues the day type thing. So the fact that the villain commentator just bullied his way over everyone else's voice, it to me is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the mindset that worked for him in the early days of wrestling, though, I guess. So he's just sort of kept on to that.
Oh, yeah, most likely. I mean, and to be honest, it's not even a wrestling thing. And, it's like, I imagine a lot of people will know those kind of individuals in their real life work as well. And at the end of the day, you've got to just try and stay above it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you need to turn up, be professional, be that constant professional, and hopefully that will get you ahead.
All right, so sticking with trying to get you some heat,
okay.
I want to know your favorite matches that you've called, and you can dig all the way back if you want to FWA, or you can give us a bunch of MCW matches, whatever you want.
Oh man, Gosh, that's really hard. I mean, it is very, very hard to sometimes choose in that way. Sorry, one second. My wife has just come through. They're both yours. Awesome. Sorry, that was the voice of Lady Coyne, who, bless her, has to put up with me doing a wrestling podcast. And she's hungry, and she's brought dinner through and go, which one's mine? So,
right.
But anyway, yeah, sorry. But that also bought me time to have a think. Tell you, I'll try and pick something from my English days, shall we say, and something from my Aussie days. I think, it's a stab in the dark, because at the end of the day, I'm sure I'll change my mind all the time. But I think if you want to talk about matches I got to commentate on, matches that were very special in MCW, Slex versus Okada was just fantastic. I mean, looking back on it now, that match was so significant to the history of MCW. And to be a part of that, was very, very special as a ring announcer and as a commentator as well. When it comes back to the sort of the UK days, gosh, that's really hard. I think one thing that's cool looking back on some of my old UK stuff is I got to commentate on some matches which at the time I didn't realize were going to be, these were going to be big, big deals. And I managed to commentate on matches like Johnny Storm versus a young AJ Styles. There was a young CM Punk taking on a young Samoa Joe. Actually, no, I know which match to say. So in the British days, I think one thing that is always going to remain a feather in my cap, and you can check this on Wikipedia, is that I was the commentator for the first ever Ring of Honor Championship match to take place outside of America when Samoa Joe took on the Zebra Kid. And that was a stonking match because both of them are just massive bruisers who love to throw hard hits, and it was just an awesome match to watch.
Nice. Is that something that people can dig up on YouTube, or now that the person
I was saying earlier, somebody did manage to put pretty much every match I ever commentated on in the UK online now. So I'll actually tell you after the interview, I'll share the link with you and you can watch that, because that is a match that is actually quite close and dear to my heart.
That'll be great, and we'll put it in the show notes for people to check out as well.
Please, yeah.
Well, let's talk about MCW, right? It's your home here in Australia, and it's been a crazy month of May.
Whoa.
That's why I chose you as my guest for this episode, because we're closing out a ridiculous month for Melbourne City Wrestling. Wrestle Rock, Girl, Brewery Brawl, Water Settle the Score. How is everyone?
Right, I can answer that. So look, before I answer that, though, is obviously for me, I was only a part of two of those shows, Brewery Brawl and The War to Settle the Score. And obviously, in addition to that, there was the Girl show. There was also the Wrestle Rock show. My goodness, I think everyone from the MCW management team are absolutely exhausted, particularly my mates Hawko and Joel Bateman, who are unsung heroes, because those are the guys who are in charge of the ring crew. And within that time, they had to get up super early every day, get all the trainees. And the trainees, God bless you guys, they would get the ring packed, they take it to the next venue, they put up the ring, and then by the time they finish, it's 3 a.m. already. So, God bless those guys. Everyone was exhausted. In fact, I remember I spoke to Mikey J very briefly after it all, and I tried to talk to him about a few professional matters, so to speak, and he pretty much sort of went, shh, and placed his finger on my lips and went, no, now we sleep. Bless him. Everyone was exhausted, but I think at the end of the day, though, I think everyone who was involved in that needs to look back and realize what a hell of an accomplishment it was. Obviously, we had a Thornbury show. I believe the Thornbury show brought in about 500 to 550 fans. We did the Brewery Brawl, which had about 650 to 700 fans, which is huge.
That thing looked packed on Vimeo, when I watched it. And that went up really quick as well, by the way.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you
like an amazing atmosphere.
I think if anyone hasn't watched it, please go watch Brewery Brawl on MCW Encore, purely for the main event of Avery taking on the Session Moth Martina. That main event was just absolutely ridiculous. And I've got to say, that is the most fun I've had in quite some time. That show was just fantastic. And I hope, and a big thanks to Moo Dog Brewery, they are gents. I really hope we get to do another brewery show with them at some point, because that was a really special evening. And here's the thing, on the run-up to it, it was an unknown quantity. A wrestling show with Good Beer Week, we generally didn't know what the attendance was going to be like. For all we know, people were guessing numbers anywhere from as low as 200 to as high as 1,000 or whatever. And the fact that it had that turnout, just absolutely incredible. And I think everyone had an awesome time, whether they were hardcore wrestling fans or they were just a bunch of beer nuts looking for a fun night.
Yeah, well, it definitely looked like a success. And I heard stories of, the lines at the bar being so long that they actually had to have, the barmaids walk around with trolleys of ice and beer to sell people beer just like out in the crowd.
Oh, they know what they're doing. They're the best workers of the lot. Thankfully, we had our own stash of beer in the back, so I didn't have to worry about that at the end of the day. I also had a driver, so I didn't have to worry about driving home. Thank the Lord.
Nice. Nice. That's a Lord's life, having a driver.
It is a Lord's life. Yeah, the chauffeur was pulled home. I've got like a really scummy little black car, but it's I pretend I have a limo. Let's say I had a limo.
I have a chauffeur. His name is Uber.
Going to pick me up. Or the referee Sam Addison, which is also his name. He's God bless him. He's driven me to enough shows. I need to get him a little gift actually to say thank you.
Yeah, but yeah. So I think it speaks to the state of Melbourne City Wrestling and probably Australian wrestling on the whole. Really, though, that many shows can take place in one town in the month, and people keep coming back and obviously bringing in international talent as well. Like, it was a huge month. It can't be oversold, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I think, though, I don't know, a part of me feels that maybe it was one too many shows, maybe. I'm not too sure, but like I say, everyone was exhausted afterwards, but it was a hell of a success, and everyone should be really proud about that. And I think you're right. I think it is a really good reflection as to where the scene is as a whole, globally. As the scene is in Australia and also MCW on its own. And at the end of the day, we're all getting into a very exciting time at wrestling at the moment. AEW's just launched. Independent wrestling is taking off. And I think at the end of the day, I think in the next few years, we're going to see a little bit of a shift, a paradigm shift. And I'm hoping that MCW will be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, well, I've said a few times, I've spoken to a few people, and you're probably going to be a great person to talk to about this. But Jonah, when I spoke to Jonah, he said that he feels like we are where the UK was about 5 years ago. Do you know what?
It's very interesting. When I first met Mikey J, incidentally, 5 years ago, I said the exact same thing. I said, where it is now is where it was in the UK 5 years ago. So I suppose that would be 10 years ago now, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
It did sort of develop in that sort of similar way. And in fact, I can't remember which show it was. I think it might have been the MCW 100. I went over to Mikey J because I thought he'd get the reference. And I said to him, Mikey, that was your FWA British Uprising. And he got the reference. He enjoyed it because for us at the time, that's when we were able to run a show where more people came to than any other show before. Like we jumped from a 300-seater to a 1,000-seater at the York Hall in Bethnal Green in the United Kingdom, which is obviously now a regular place that fans go to. And hopefully it will continue to grow. I think the one disadvantage that Australia has, obviously, is that you've got a smaller population spread over a much larger sort of space. But I think the scene is going to continue to develop in its own unique way. And I'm very excited to see how that goes.
Yeah, well, it's just with WWE and stuff getting involved in the UK, like 2 or 3 years ago, hearing that we're only 5 years behind, it can make you both excited and nervous when you look at the Australian wrestling boom. But I really feel like Australia is sort of the next hotspot. It's the next place with Robbie doing what he's doing. Yeah. Adam Brooks is about to show up on MLW. Yep. Of course, Jonah's over in NXT. A lot of our guys have gone over there. Mikey Nichols has just returned. I feel like it's really heating up here, and people are starting to look.
And I think the thing that I really like is that on the whole, I think there's a lot of people backstage are very happy for the people who have been successful, mainly because actually the people who have been successful so far and have managed to land those WWE contracts or those contracts abroad, they're generally the most professional people that you would ever meet. And I think that's very promising that we've now got to that point where that professionalism is actually awarded with these massive opportunities with New Japan or WWE or wherever that may be.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good for people coming in as well, obviously, and seeing all the pathways that they have to international success and stuff starting from here. Because when I was 16, I wanted to do wrestling training, and I was talked out of it because there's no way. Like, first off, you're 5'8", you're never going to get any bigger, and it's not. And now look at all the best wrestlers in the world, right? I wish I didn't listen to people back then because there's pathways now from here.
I wanted to be the next Taz because I'm like 5'8" as well and sort of wide.
Yeah.
So I thought if I can pack on more muscle onto my frame, I can start suplexing people everywhere. And I used to love suplexing people in my matches. I was the biggest Taz mark. So I think you're right though that I think now there's a much clearer path, particularly with the WWE performance centers in America and also in the United Kingdom, which is obviously massive.
Yeah.
And obviously there are paths to New Japan as well. I mean, obviously Tox Farley has his school in New Zealand, and a lot of guys at the moment are taking advantage of that as a way to hopefully get into New Japan as well. So, and I think that's fair. I think at the end of the day, with any career, having a clear path as to how you want to climb up that career ladder is really vital. And I think the fact that they've made it clearer now is a good thing, because what it does is it kind of goes, I need to accomplish the following, or I need to get to this level to hit that next step. And I think giving people those clear direction is absolutely vital for success.
Yeah, but as well, it means that all the 16-year-olds now whose parents are telling them, there's no future in that or anything, they can actually look at it and go, well, hang on.
Yeah,
Robbie did it, and look at the path he's paved, and Brooksy's doing it, and these people have all done it, so maybe I can. And so then we'll get more people actually getting involved and not being absolutely terrified like I was as a young boy, and getting involved, and then you have more people, and then the whole thing just grows and grows, and I think it's really exciting.
I remember when I got involved, and at the end of the day, if you looked online for training schools, you could only find one or two of them at the time. But now people are have access to so much better information. Thanks to the old internet, there's access to the information not only on how to go ahead in your wrestling career, but also how to improve your fitness, how to eat correctly. There's just all this information at your fingertips. So it becomes really easy to kind of find the right sources of information to really help you. Back then, that information just wasn't there. And a lot of it was almost, you'd learn it through hearsay from other wrestlers or other people who were also trying to accomplish the same dream. But it was like the blind leading the blind. Nobody really knew.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So with the Australian wrestling boom, though, we're also seeing a boom in Australian wrestling media. Yeah.
Yes.
So myself here, the B+, we've got On the Turnbuckle over there. I know you've visited those guys a few times.
Oh, yeah. Those guys are, I think those guys are fantastic. I have to admit, they're very professional. And I think, obviously, yourself, you're doing very well as well. I think there's a lot of podcasts that suddenly exploded in the last year and a bit.
Yeah. Just Talking Stick, Wide World of Wrestling, Top Rope podcast. Handheld Travel do one up there, and they sort of focus on Newcastle Pro Wrestling pretty much. Our forebears, of course, Wrestle Radio Australia, who I'm sure you've stopped by with Toddy as well at some point.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, but you actually have your own ventures in Aus Wrestling Media. You were with One Fall for a while.
I was with One Fall for a bit, yes.
That was when One Fall was at its peak for me. I think. And the stuff, legitimately, when I decided to get into this and do the podcast, people were like, "You got to do YouTube. You got to do YouTube." And I was like, "Well, first off, I have a face for radio, but I didn't want to get into YouTube because I was like, if I can't be the best at it,
yes,
I don't want to do it." And I looked at One Fall and I was like, I can't top that. And that was when you and Mark were doing things there.
One Fall was a really interesting opportunity. It was obviously the person who sort of started it, had this relationship with RMI TV, and in turn they had access to this multi-million-dollar sort of equipment and sort of studios, and so the equipment and the quality of the equipment was definitely there. And various people were approached to try and be involved with it, and including myself and my counterlord, shall we say, Lord Mark Williamson. And so obviously we were sort of the main host when it first launched, and we had a lot of fun with it. It was this weekly commitment to go down every Monday, and wrestlers were excited to be a part of it because, it was different, and the studios looked incredibly professional, looked incredibly polished, and it had all the potential in the world. But, I know where this conversation is obviously going to go. And unfortunately, One Fall, eventually myself and Mark left One Fall. And unfortunately, One Fall just wasn't really able to continue after their attempt to do these streaming shows. And you know what? It's a mixed feeling. It's kind of Well, yeah, it's kind of a bittersweet thing in many ways. But hopefully, anyone who is involved with it will be able to learn from any of the errors or learn from the experience and be able to move on and, make something else out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like if anything, 1-4 does have a legacy in terms of the live streaming, right? They brought the Kling service, which now Wrestle Rampage used Kling, and like I had a dental emergency last Wrestle Rampage show. I didn't get to get out to the show. I was able to last minute buy it for $10 and still watch it, even though I couldn't go.
Yeah.
And now PWA are jumping on the live streaming, and so that's kind of pushing us forward. And so we do have 1-4 to thank for that, and perhaps even biting you with the bug of doing this kind of media, because now you're starting Snapmares.
That's fair. No, I think that's a totally fair statement because, I think with any venture that you take part in, there's part of it that you enjoy, there's part of it you don't enjoy. And if you want to move forward on your own, what you need to do is sort of, well, why did I like this and why didn't I like this component of it? And, Snapmare consists of various people who are new to it, but also had some involvement in the 1-4 project as well. And, to be honest, we've actually been kind of planning and mulling and talking about this for quite a while, but we didn't want to rush into it. And I think the one key difference between 1-4 and the Snapmare project is 1-4 was, I said the word commitment earlier, which can be quite hard, especially when, wrestling is a hobby to many people, is that, to go down every Monday, always have content ready, always have a wrestler lined up, always have somebody to interview, that can wear on you a little bit. I think what we're trying to do with Snapmare is, and look, it's very early days with Snapmare. Trust me, I'm under no illusions otherwise. But what we're trying to do with Snapmare is come up with an idea for a series or a project, make sure that all the pieces are in the right place, and then move forward on it. And we did the show at the Sporting Globes. We did a WrestleMania reaction video. And, a massive thank you to MCW and the Sporting Globe for allowing us to do that. Because in many ways, they were taking a chance on us. And I think that we produced a really good, fun video that everyone enjoyed being a part of. And it also, I think it felt it had enough quality about it that people were able to trust us to try something else. The next project we then worked on, or still working on, was one called MCW on Tap. So the idea was to be a sort of a brewery talk and wrestling show. We did film a pilot, and we showed the pilot to Moondog, our sponsor, and obviously to MCW higher-ups. And being a pilot, everyone looked at it, and there were some things that they liked, some things that they wanted improvement on. So we're hopefully in the position where we will do another pilot soon and hopefully move forward on that. But at the same time, we're not sort of staying quiet, so to speak. We are looking at running other shows and doing other features. In fact, this past weekend, we went down to check out some new recording studios. I'm actually going to go check out some other ones tomorrow as well. And if we can find the right area to sort of film the content, then obviously that speeds us up. And I think the other difference between what 1-4 was and what we want the Snapmares to be is that 1-4 was trying to be a content creator and a channel at the same time, which, it's a very difficult balance to make. And it's something that I've seen other people in the UK try and do in the past as well. What Snapmares is trying to be is primarily a producer of content. So yes, we do have our social medias, but the idea of the social media is to sort of chronicle going, hey, look, we're filming something, and have a couple of photos come up, or look, we went to check this out. What do you think? And put up some photos, put up some quick videos. But the idea is to produce content for other people, because, I can try and create a new social media channel. Currently has 60 likes, 60 on Facebook. Yes. Meanwhile,
I see 62. I just refreshed, and I see 6,
which is a tiny pool. It's a tiny pool, obviously. But MCW, we want to make content for them because they have 9,500 fans at the moment, and it makes sense for us to create content for MCW and for other, not necessarily other promotions, but for other groups as well, to really help us get our name out there. But at the end of the day, we make the best content when we work closely with the people who are in a position to help us with that content. MCW's got the history. MCW has the footage. MCW, at the end of the day, is one of the leading promotions in this country. So why wouldn't we want to work very closely with them and help produce awesome content for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're looking more as sort of a production company as opposed to being a channel like 1-4 was, or like even like we do here. although we're mostly audio.
Correct. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I can spend all my spare time and energy on trying to make an amazing channel, or we can spend our time and energy trying to make really good content for people. You know, we're trying to be Endemol effectively. You know, Endemol, who produce things like Big Brother and other sort of reality TV shows. That's who I want to be, and I think that is the primary focus.
Yeah, and so ultimately, when this boom of Australian wrestling leads us to the mainstream, and you know, PWA and MCW are going head to head on Channel 9 and 10, you guys can be in a position to sell a talk series to Fox Sports or something like that, right?
That would be the.
We've got to dream big here, Andy. We've got to dream big.
That would be the dream. But you know, for us, I mean, obviously, what we get out of it is that, obviously, for me, I have a very close relationship with MCW, and for me to help galvanize that relationship, you know, that is a benefit to me. Obviously, the guys I'm working with, they're looking for experience. They're looking to put things in their respective portfolio, so this gives them that opportunity to do that, and also it gives us opportunity outside of wrestling as well. I can't talk about those at the moment, but the idea is every time we produce something, that's something that we can put in our proverbial show reel and go to other businesses and go, hey, are you looking for somebody to help make social media content for you? So it's hopefully we'll be able to produce stuff not just for wrestling, but for the people who are working on the project. It gives them experience. It gives them something to put into their show reel. It gives them opportunities to go find work outside of wrestling as well. And that's really what I'm hoping to accomplish with it.
That's brilliant. And look, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the Instagram as well. And yeah, criminally underliked. So where can people find Snapmares on the social media?
You know what? If you go to Twitter, you go to Facebook, go to Instagram and search Snapmares. So we spelt mares with like a leader of a town.
Like a mayor.
A mayor. Yeah, exactly. A snap mayor, basically. And you'll see the logo. It's a little man sort of flexing his muscles. He's got the monocle. He's got the mustache. He's got the top hat. My God, the debates we had about whether to put a top hat on that logo. My goodness.
I feel like if you didn't have the top hat, Concrete Davidson could sue for gimmick infringement.
Yeah, the one of the earlier drafts did have a version of that without the top hat, and I'm going, it needs a top hat, and it went to the vote.
Yeah, because he's got the single strap too, so you know it could be a strong man, but the top hat clearly makes him a mayor.
Exactly, that's what I felt it needed as well. But actually, this is something I've really enjoyed because I've started working on this. The two main guys I'm working with is David Knight and Jack. I've forgotten his name. What's surname? That's terrible. I hope you'll forgive me, I'm sure. But, you know, and the good thing is these are guys who are passionate about media and they enjoy wrestling, and they've been a joy to work with because it's not been a case of, there's not been any egos, I don't feel. That's a really dangerous thing to say out loud, I know. But, I don't feel like we have any egos. So usually it's touch wood. Yeah, you know, indeed. I mean, I've worked on projects before where I've said that and then the egos come out. But you know, I think at the end of the day, these are people who really want to enjoy being a part of this. There's a socializing experience to it as well. And it is a case of, look, I'll be honest, I actually didn't want Snapmares originally. I wanted another name, but, you know, myself and my team, we talked about it. We shortlisted the names, we voted on it, and Snapmares was the one it was at the end of the day. So
I like Snapmares. It's punny. It
is punny, and I have to admit, being a commentator, I love puns. You know, if I can, everyone's finisher would just be a really bad pun at the end of the day. That's what I try to accomplish.
All right, and where can people find you making various puns? Obviously on Vimeo, Encore, On Demand. What about if they want to follow you on Twitter?
I do have a Twitter. I got to be honest, I don't use it very often. But the best way to follow me is, obviously, there's my Facebook page. So if you search Lord Andy Coyne, you'll see my smug little smiley face come up. That's probably my main channel. But also, I do have Lord Andy Coyne on Instagram. Instagram's a little different. You'll get a little bit more of a sneak of my real life, so to speak. I'm an alcoholic. I mean, a craft beer enthusiast. So you'll see me taking lots of photos of the various craft beers that I drink, of the animals that I'm currently fostering as well. So, you know, both channels have quite different content. The Facebook one is much more my professional page for wrestling.
Awesome. Thanks so much for stopping by the show, man. I feel like we could have talked for probably an hour more, but we'll leave it there, and we'll have to get you back in the future.
No, Greg, thanks very much. But I know what you mean. Like these podcasts, my God, it's like you start chatting and you don't ever want to stop. But thank you very much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And of course, hang on, before you go though, I'm getting in my last thing. Obviously, the next two shows that I'm going to be a part of, Melbourne City Wrestling, Saturday, 8th of June, tensions rising at the Thornbury Theatre. And then much later on, 13th of July, Showdown Aftershock in Werribee, where my evil twin brother will be managing DCT as he takes on Slade Mercer.
Yeah, absolutely. DCT, who's just taking over. And look, we're going to start talking again. So we're going to put the pin in it here because this has to make it into an hour-long episode. But thank you so much for stopping by. And we'll definitely do it again because there's a lot on my list that we did not get to. So thanks a lot.
No worries, Greg. Take care.
So there you have it, Lord Andy Coyne. A very easy person to talk to. We could have gone easily for another hour. We did go for another 10 minutes after we turned the microphones off, and we'd talked already for 20 minutes before we turned the microphones on. So definitely we'll be having Lord Andy Coyne back on the show again because I had a bunch of things in my dot points there to talk to him about that we didn't even get to. So definitely going to have to speak to Lord Andy Coyne again in the future. But if you liked that interview and you like Aussie Grappler and Grappler adjacent person interviews, then there are other places you can get your fix this week. Davis Storm stopped by with Conco and the Fudge. Conco and the Fudge, of course, famously told us that they were saying goodbye to the Star Bar. It was a big old swerve. They're still going, and Davis Storm was on this week, so definitely check that one out. Davis Storm is always a pleasure to listen to. He's been on every podcast but mine at this point, so I'm going to have to reach out to Davis Storm. But we also had Buddy Murphy show up on the Fight Club podcast out of New Zealand. If you're strictly a wrestling fan, you're going to have to do quite a bit of skipping through this podcast. They talk a lot about MMA and other boxing, other forms of fighting. It's a Fight Club podcast. It's not just wrestling, but Buddy Murphy is on there to talk about the upcoming Australian tour. Rocky Menero and Eric Bischoff both stopped by Wrestle Radio Australia. You heard me right. Eric Bischoff and the new Riot City Wrestling champ. He gets the main billing. He's the new Riot City Wrestling champ, Rocky Menero. He stops by Wrestle Radio Australia with host Todd Eastman. The IIconics stopped by the Top Rope podcast on Triple M. And, of course, our good friends on the Turnbuckle sat down this week to speak with Richard South. He is no longer Ricky South. He is no longer the tough stuff. He is the official Richard South, and he is on the Turnbuckle this week, so definitely check that one out as well. And now let's have a look at what's happening this weekend near you over in New Zealand. IPW Armageddon Expo in Christchurch is taking place in Canberra. ICW Chill Factor. Now, make sure you head to the Facebook for these guys to see the cards, to see the ticket prices, to see the exact locations. In New South Wales, you got AWF Para Powerbomb taking place in Parramatta. Rock and Roll Wrestling are at City Diggers once again in Wollongong. In Queensland, IPW present Love and War 3. In Western Australia, New Horizons Pro Wrestling are taking part in Carnival Fever at the Cannington Showgrounds all weekend on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So that goes through to Monday. They're wrestling all weekend. And Western Pro Wrestling, WPW, are at the Baldivis Rec Centre for another all-ages show there. In Victoria, PCW present Mayhem this week at the Southeastern Entertainment Centre. NAW are live in Albion, and the King of Colac, I believe they have a cage match this week. Fantastic stuff. Definitely get out and check out King of Colac. Get out and check out all your local shows. Support the boys and girls. Buy some merch. Cheer the good guys. Boo the bad guys. You know what it's about. It's about supporting Aussie Grapps. It's about watch global, support local. Get out there, buy a shirt. If you want to support us and what we do here and our whole mission of watch global, support local, you can do so at patreon.com/theb+. I've been talking enough. My voice is starting to go. This is the 3rd podcast I've done today. Despite everything, I'm feeling really accomplished, to be honest with you. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Get out to a show. Check it out. If you want to follow me on social media, I am at Greg Unchained on Twitter, at TheGregUnchained on Instagram. We collectively are the B+ Wrestle on Twitter because wrestling wouldn't fit the B+ Wrestling everywhere else. Like, share, subscribe, 5-star review if you like what we do. Make sure you hit up that Patreon, and thank you so much for listening.